You're listening to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Did you know that you could build a tax-free pool of wealth that's liquid and accessible all your life while building your retirement nest egg? Gain full control of your financial future and stop relying on the government and banks. The wealthy have already discovered this wealth-building secret. Now it's your turn to get financially secure without following the conventional wisdom that keeps you in debt to banks. Now here's your host, Valerie LaRocque.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. I hope your 2025 is starting off great these last couple of weeks. I was talking to a couple of clients recently and had some really good conversations just about the banking system and how it's really a lot safer to house your savings dollars inside of a life insurance policy, a whole life policy that is. Because let me digress for a moment here, but I also had another conversation recently that reminded me to share again just how many agents are out there saying that they specialize in IBC and then are helping clients with IULs, Index Universal Life Policies. These policies are simply not as safe. They're just not nearly as stable as whole life policies are for the purposes of IBC. They definitely look good in illustrations, and they do oftentimes look better if you're trying to compare a whole life illustration to a universal life illustration. And so that's why I think part of the reason why they feel like that product is a superstar product, because they'll hold it up next to a whole life and say, look how much better it's doing. Look at these rates make it so much better, and it just has this larger cash value. But they are not good for IBC. And those illustrations can look exciting, but they are, whatever you're looking at is basically guaranteed not to happen. IULs, they don't receive dividends. They may have possible market upswing because they have a 0% floor and then a cap. And those caps can be higher, 9%, 10%, 11%. They were higher even when I started in the insurance industry, but they don't have any dividends paid to them. And the companies can change those cap rates every year. And they do oftentimes. They don't necessarily, even if you get in when the interest rate or the cap rate is at 10, 11, 12%, and you think, hey, that's pretty good, that doesn't mean it's staying that way for the life of your contract. One of the major selling points of that contract is that it has a 0% floor, meaning that if you choose an S&P 500 index, for example, you are going to receive those earnings of that index from whatever it did from the date that you get your contract to the anniversary date, the next year on your anniversary date. They kind of look back and say, what was it on this day last year? And then that's how they figure out the interest that you're going to receive. And so you can also get a 0% interest rate. And that's one of the selling points, because they're saying, well, if it goes down 20, 30%, you at least didn't lose anything. You at least just got zero. But those zeros make a difference too in the actual average, because what they're showing you is an average over the course of, the lifetime of the policy. But that's just showing you a continuous average, an average that stays the same every single year, which again is guaranteed not to happen. Because of course there's going to be up years and down years, and it's not going to be just this continuous average rate every single year for the life of your contract. Whereas whole life may not illustrate with this higher rate, which is oftentimes fictional, not likely to happen. It's going to be illustrated at a lower rate, but it also is guaranteed to grow every year and guaranteed to kind of snowball, where those dividends, they come in, they get added into your cash value. And now once you've earned that dividend, it's guaranteed for you. Now you're going to earn that guaranteed rate on top of that dividend that you've earned, and they cannot take away from you. That's your dividend. And every year those dividends are likely to be higher and higher and higher. The loans work differently for Index Universal Life policies as opposed to, or in contrast of, whole life policies as well. Another thing that's important to pay attention to is that in the actual contract, the contract that you are sent after you've chosen what you want to do and you have applied for it and you have been approved for it and now you have the contract in hand, the contract for universal life policy comes with guarantees inside, but it's not a guarantee to protect you, it's a guarantee to protect the company. So rather than having a guarantee that shows how it's guaranteeing your cash value and the growth, It's showing you a guarantee showing, hey, this is the maximum charge that we can charge you. That's what they're promising inside of an index universal life contract is here's the maximum charge that we can charge you. And that maximum goes up as you age as well. They're simply able to increase your cost up to a maximum at any time. And this increase does not include, so that's two different ways actually that your policy can increase in cost. And I actually have had a company have to increase costs. They did not increase it all the way to the maximum, but they did increase it on existing policies. And they had to send out a notification, hey, we are going to increase the rate from here to here. I had a client who was given to me from an agent who left the business. He reached out and he said, what's happening? This is my child's policy. They're saying they're raising the cost. And I said, yeah, I'm sorry, actually. And that's not even the highest amount that they could raise it to. That's not even the maximum because they have a contractual guaranteed maximum that they can raise it to inside of the contract. So of course that client was super frustrated and he ended up canceling his child's policy, which was a bummer. And I would have hoped to have helped him in a different way, but he was just really frustrated. But the difference is whole life guarantees cash value. So your actual hard copy contract or your PDF contract will show guaranteed cash value to age 121 to show how it's going to protect your cash value. So again, I'll just say IULs, contractual guarantees inside of their contract, protect the company in case they have to raise rates for something. And the whole life contractual guarantees protects the client. So with an index universal life policy and IUL, they're basically trying to make them more transparent so you can see all the different costs and all the moving parts inside of the policy. Also, they are turning over the investment risk to the client. They're turning it over to you. While they step away from that and they just operate everything else, they're turning over that risk of growing the money to you. Personally, I would rather just leave the investment risk with the company, the natural increases that will occur as you age. Companies that have been highly successful at doing this with life insurance products that have been around for over 200 years. I know that some agents really love these IUL illustrations and are just dazzled by them because they look better than whole life illustrations. But again, that's just because it's showing that continuous average year after year after year. If a lower number is put in there to reflect a lower average, it definitely takes that cash value way down. So a slightly lower number or a change to that average that is just put into the illustration definitely has a big effect on the future cash value. And the guaranteed column almost always runs out before age 80 or something like that because it's reflecting the maximum amount of charges that they are contractually able to charge you, but it's also showing a worst case scenario overall. So it shows guarantees simply running out too young before you have reached old age. And then the average rate that's being used on the contract, whether it's conservative or not, it's guaranteed not to happen because it's not going to be the same number year after year after year. It's going to be zero sometimes and the high and maybe the low, and then they can change the ceiling anyway. So then you might not even have an average that high because maybe the ceiling dips down. So there's a lot of different factors that can change what you're looking at on one of those illustrations. And of course, it's always important to remember that life insurance is not an investment. It is an asset. Some people out there, I think, treat it like it's an investment and talk about it like, hey, you can invest it this way or that way, or you're thinking of it like an investment because you're using these policies that you can choose an index in the market, and that makes it feel like it's bringing in investing into the policy. But life insurance is an asset, not an investment. Instead of comparing it to an investment, it makes more sense to compare it to a savings account. And it's going to do so much more as a holding tank than your savings account will. It just has so many more benefits. It has the guaranteed growth. It has the critical, chronic, and terminal illness rider if you were to need to access a portion of the death benefit for one of those three things. It has the waiver of premium rider, where if you get too sick or hurt to work, you can stop paying your premiums and you will still retain your policy. It has, of course, the borrowing capability. While your account is still growing, you can borrow against it and your account continues to grow. I mean, what's better than that? And then you have also the guaranteed low interest rate for all loans for the rest of your life. The list goes on and on. And also there's creditor protection in most states. So when comparing to a savings account, well, it just blows it way out of the water. But when it comes to growing your banking system, once you're already doing this action and you have a policy and now you're trying to start banking with it, it's really about your actions. The growth of it is going to depend on your actions. Are you treating yourself like an honest banker? Are you stealing the peas? Are you putting in excess cash as you pay loans off or debt to outside banks? Are you putting that into premium and to grow your overall system, or are you doing something else with it? It's most dependent on your actions, how successful your banking system will be. Another solid win for having money in a whole life policy as opposed to a bank account for just savings dollars is that if you happen to have $100,000 in your whole life policy versus having $100,000 in your savings account and you pass away, your whole life policy is going to pay your family a much higher death benefit and it's going to be tax-free. But if you pass away with $100,000 in your savings account or in an investment account even, your family will get the amount of the money that's in the account minus any taxes due, not a much, much larger tax-free death benefit. Okay, so I started off talking about how it's a lot safer to house savings dollars inside of a whole life policy rather than a savings account, and I did just rattle off some of those reasons. Another major reason, which I recently talked about, life insurance companies don't fractional reserve bank, which helps our whole economy and nation by not continuing to inflate the money supply. You can be a part of the solution rather than be a part of the problem. Another reason why it's way safer is because there have been over 500 bank failures since the year 2000, whereas life insurance companies are the financial pillars of strength for our nation. One thing that I love about specializing in this strategy is that the majority of my client accounts don't have a care in the world when they see headlines such as why the stock market may sell off even more in January, or the stock market is sending a worrying signal that 2025 is going to be a tough year. Or how about this one? The Dow just had its longest losing streak in decades. Since I'm also an advisor and help clients that want to be in the market, I help them be in the market if they want to be, I still always do my best to give them a foundational understanding in the power of whole life insurance and the infinite banking concept. Because taking over the banking function in your life is truly the most powerful thing you can do. And if you're going to do it, if you're going to go down the path of becoming your own banker, make sure you use a nice, solid policy. So as always, if you're feeling ready to start your own policy for the purposes of infinite banking, or you simply would like a whole life policy, or if you have a question about life insurance in general, or disability insurance, or long-term care insurance, I'd be happy to talk with you. If you'd like to work with me as your advisor, please reach out to me at Valerie@alphaomegawealth.com. I hope your 2025 is starting off strong, as well as any resolutions or goals that you've made for the year. You know, I'm not really big on New Year's resolutions and I never make them. But this year, I thought I would try one that seems pretty simple to me. I decided to make my resolution having at least 1 cup of tea every day because I've learned so much about tea and there's so many good ones for so many different things. And it's easy because you're supposed to be drinking all this water anyway. And so I would like to have at least 1 cup of tea every day. Some examples are nettle tea that helps with inflammation and lots of other things, actually. You should look it up. Also, dandelion tea is great for your liver. It's funny, isn't it, that those dandelions we're trying to kill outside of our yards are actually medicinal for us and helpful. Here we are spending all this time trying to kill weeds, and they are meant to bring healing to us. Hibiscus tea is great for the heart, and dandelion leaf tea is great for water retention. So there's just so many great teas. Oh, and mushrooms. We should be eating a variety of mushrooms. Those are also amazing, like lion's mane, which is great for your brain. I'll try to remember to share with you the things that I learned along the way about different teas that can help many different health issues and just help you to be a healthier person. Okay, that's enough about health and goals and drinking tea, and I hope you all have a great week, and I will talk at you next time. Take care.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.